Today's program is being sponsored by and brought to you by the Honda and the Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, SVRA and the resurging Trans Am Series, VP Insurance, which is only a couple of blocks west of the Speedway on 16th Street, Dr. Jack Miller and his dental practice, the Indy Dental Group, phenomenal practice. Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2021 show. I'm your host, Don Kay, and believe it or not, we're standing at Gate 1 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and it's a perfect place to have my guest today, the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Mr. Doug Boles. And Doug, I got to thank you for taking the time, but there's no clouds in the sky, the sun is out, it's perfect. Thanks for stopping by.
Well, this is fun to get you out. We're going to have to get a t-shirt now if you're going to go out and of all the different locations you're going to be on site doing. No, happy to have you here. I know how much you love this place, so it's pretty fun to get us together here in front of Gate 1.
How much has things changed with the transition of the stewardship of the track?
It's been an interesting change for sure. You know, obviously the Holman George family did amazing things over the 75 years that they owned the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But bringing Roger Penske in here in November of 2019, closing right in January of 2020, it's been an amazing process. His energy level for the IndyCar Series, for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, for this community and this neighborhood is pretty exciting for all of us that work here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He's in at least once a week. He'll spend a day or two here walking the facility. So it's kind of nice to have that hands-on leadership from Roger Penske, and it is definitely making a difference.
Well, he's done a lot to this place. I mean, people who were here in May said, holy smoke, look at this. There's pipes back here behind the building. They're all painted. I mean, he's really taken this place to heart and stepped it up. And I think, in my opinion, and most people, it was a good move on his part and on the Holman George family to move it to him.
Well, I think exactly that's the case. And I think if you were to ask the Holman George family, they would probably tell you there's nobody better to continue the legacy that Tony Holman and the Holman George family started than Roger Penske. And I think Roger, obviously understanding our history and tradition, having come here for the first time in 1951, racing here in the late 60s, winning 18 times in the Indy 500, winning the Brickyard 400. There's not anybody that's more passionate about our racing and our facility than Roger. So to have him as our leader, especially now in this next phase, getting through COVID, I don't know how we would have gotten through COVID without Roger's leadership. So there have been a lot of great things that Roger's brought along.
Well, I got to think that it hurt on the bottom line, but he didn't stop. That didn't stop him. He did what he had to do. He wanted to race come hell or high water, and he got hell with nobody here, but he still did it. And now he's moving on, and things are looking pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I think things are looking great. I think Roger has said several times this wasn't a one-year investment. So for him, it's a long-term investment. For the family, for the Penske family, it's a long-term investment. So for him, he was able to continue to invest because he knew that he wasn't looking for this to pay off in the short term, especially through 2020. He also made that tough decision, along with all of us together, to have the Indy 500 without fans when we know that so much of the Indy 500 is about the fans. But really, if you think about how healthy we've been in 2021, had we not had the 2020 Indianapolis 500, I think 2021 would have been a completely different situation for the entire ecosystem of IndyCar racing. So it was the right decision for the long-term benefit of the IndyCar Series, the 500, and frankly, the fans who get to come to the 500 every year.
Well, speaking of fans coming to the 500, 2021 was restricted supposedly to 140 or 145,000. I didn't count them, but it looked. But what does next year look like? Are people anxious to get back? Those that couldn't get here, are they anxious to come back?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's really excited to come back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Our renewals are higher than they've ever been. I can't wait till our live sales start up again later here in the fall when we get the chance for people that don't have those tickets yet to buy them. So I feel like 2022, while it's probably not going to be 2016, it's certainly going to be better than anything we've seen since 2016 or before. There is a lot of excitement and energy for the Indianapolis 500 in 2022.
I don't know if the people can hear, but behind us there's some cars running. The facility is used now more than it ever was, bringing in a number of different series. Is that good?
It's good. One of the things that Roger really wanted us to do when he took over was focus on the basics. We are a racetrack, so focus on events that really put cars on the racetrack, and not just any car, but cars that are appropriate and fit the Indianapolis Motor Speedway brand. So that's what we're seeing a lot more of right now. A lot of cars testing here In the past, we haven't had the open testing opportunity for teams. And then some of the events that we have here that are not the Indy 500 or Brickyard, but the Porsche Together Fest, our Ferrari Challenge weekend. Chevy does a whole bunch of activation here and a thing called Chevy Finding Roads. So really working with those OEMs for Roger is really important. So you're going to see and hear an awful lot more activity on the racetrack going forward.
Now, it seems to me that with the exception of Indy cars, the only one that use the oval is Indy cars. That most of the programs here are on the road course. And it seems to me I've heard that Roger wants the oval for Indy cars for the 500. That's what it was built for. That's what it's for.
You know, I think with the success, given a little bit of a challenge at the end of the NASCAR race, but the success of the road race for NASCAR, we're going to continue to try that and see how that goes. The racing was good until right up at the end. Even the racing after that, we figured the curb situation out was strong. So right now, you're right. The only racing that will be on the oval is the Indianapolis 500, and in a lot of ways, that's appropriate. We did announce earlier this year that we haven't turned our back on the oval for NASCAR, and I think you'll see NASCAR Cup on the oval at some point in the future. And it may just be more special occasions versus a regular format where we are switching year over year. We're pretty comfortable with the road course right now, but I do think you'll see NASCAR back on the oval, at least on occasion here and there in the future.
Well, in my opinion, in the opinion of many, one of the thoughts was when the transition took place, is Doug going to stay? And you stayed. And I think, in my opinion, and a lot of people, you are the perfect man for this job. First off, like me, you love this place. Every morning you come in, you got to be thrilled that I'm here. And it's just something that you live and die for. And you see the people. You're approachable. People can come up and talk to you. They can ask questions. You visit areas of the state and the Midwest. I mean, I think this has got to be an ideal job for you, but has it changed any since Roger came in? Has he given you more to do?
I think there's a lot more to do. I mean, Roger works 24 hours a day. We all heard that, right? But we've actually experienced it here. He really is committed to his businesses around the world. He's got 60,000 employees and 300,000 plus trucks on the road that Penske Trucking does. But Roger really wants things to be right and to be perfect, and he's always challenging you to make them better. You mentioned the pipes being painted. It's a little thing. It's really easy to overlook, but those are the things that Roger wants us focused on. So it does keep us a little bit busier, but it's been a great learning experience for all of us, for Mark Miles, for me, for Jay Fry, for all of us inside the Penske Entertainment organization, to work alongside Roger and learn from Roger. And Roger is an amazing communicator. He wants to know what you think. He takes input really well, and as you plan out strategies, there's not a better team leader than Roger Penske. But the effort level has definitely had to step up, and as Roger said, effort equals results.
Well, the interesting thing I found one day we were talking, and I said, and you were telling me that you had a meeting with Roger that morning at 7. So you got there about 1:45 or 6:30, and he was already there. And he had toured the property before he got to the office when you walked in. So he doesn't fool around. He doesn't do something he doesn't expect you to do, or he'll do what he expects you to do. And I also understand when he's having meetings with groups from all different departments, he'll listen to anybody.
Yes.
Because you never know, as he said one day when I was talking to him briefly, he said, you never know who's got an idea that you never thought of.
Well, and it's not only does he listen to people, if there's a group of folks, he remembers names really, really well, and you could be talking about something that has nothing to do with your area of the business, and he'll specifically call you out and ask you a question because he wants that idea. He wants to hear what you have to say. And that's great for a team. For a team to feel like their leader really listens to him and cares about him is one of the things that's been fascinating to see, and how much he really does really want to include folks. But he also wants to make sure he's getting responses from people and not missing any opportunity to make this place better.
Do you think the Speedway is a better place now than it was 10 years ago?
Yeah, I absolutely think it's a better place now than it was 10 years ago. I mean, 10 years ago, if you think about where we were just a few years from unification. We were still trying to figure out exactly where we wanted to go. We were in that 2011 time period when we were talking about our 100th birthday, not our 100th anniversary, but of the Indy 500, or not the 100th running, the 100th anniversary of it. But I think we've grown an awful lot from them. That was really a beginning point 10 years ago where our ticket sales started to ramp up to the point that we got to in 2016. But in terms of the facility itself, the investment that Roger's made over the last couple of years in the facility, I think the facility's better suited. I think IndyCar is in a better place to continue to grow. The racing this year was outstanding with IndyCar, and a lot of that is the leadership of Mark and Jay, but buoyed by the leadership and the leverage that Roger Penske can bring to that organization.
I think it's amazing. And the other thing that I found very interesting, and I'm talking with a company about this, is the European coverage with these Romain Grosjean coming in, and Felix and Eric and so forth. And there's a new driver just coming in that Ray Hall Letterman Lanningen just signed, coming from Europe, that the European viewership is growing, so that the IndyCar is essentially becoming a worldwide series.
For sure it is, and I like the mix of American drivers with international drivers. It's sort of 50-50, which really makes for an interesting field. It makes those of us that want to cheer for that red, white, and blue, we've got plenty of folks to choose from. And then that international exposure it brings certainly does put us on a different stage. You know, Mark Miles has worked really hard in terms of the way we've moved our NBC relationship, but also that international television relationship. So a lot of the groundwork was laid by Mark in terms of getting us set up so that when a Grosjean comes over, or when somebody comes over from overseas, we can take advantage of that. And so having somebody like Grosjean here helped really amplify the work that had already been in place to help drive that international viewership.
Well, I was very impressed with when Roger came in. I said, as a lot of people did, what will happen? What about these people?
Yep.
He's kept you, he's kept Mark, he's kept Jay, he's got Allison, who I think is top shelf, and kept a lot of the original people that really made this place work. But obviously under his leadership, everybody stepped up a bit.
Yeah, and he's given us some tools that we didn't have before to really be successful. And it's not just financial tools. There are people that are sort of in Roger's inner circle, so Bud Danker and Jonathan Gibson, folks like that, who understand the Penske organization, but also understand motorsport, who can really help us and have helped us continue to move the ball forward. So it's one big team that really now has the benefit of some more star players to help us move things forward. So we all love working together, and then bringing those folks in from Detroit, the Penske organization, has just made us that much stronger.
Well, there's an obvious question. I know I'm not getting any younger, and Roger's got me by a year or two, I think. Who is standing next to him that when he says that this is it, or whatever he says, will step up and keep everything going?
You know, we've really never had that conversation. I assume, because I know how well Roger plans, that there's a succession plan in place, especially with respect to the Penske organization, but I think as well as it relates to the Penske Entertainment side, which would be the Speedway and IndyCar. I know the family is very engaged, so when they bought the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it wasn't just Roger's decision. I think he pulled his family together and said, hey, this has got to be a long-term family decision, and I think the family believes that this is a Roger Penske legacy. So I don't know if it'd be a family member or somebody from the Detroit side or somebody here. Right now, we're focused on making sure that in 2022 we can have the best Indianapolis 500 we've ever had, and that's the great thing about Roger. We've not lost our focus on the ball and trying to get it to the end zone.
I think he definitely sees it. The series is great, but the highlight is the 500. That's what makes the whole series work. And I think it's also smart. There's another series that comes here on occasion. Their first big race is the first one. At least you got 3 or 4 before you come here. And then it goes on, and they've added a track or two now, which I think is good. And I've read where he'd like to add maybe another oval, which I think a lot of people in Squawka would like to see. I think overall, this is still the highlight. And to be able to stand here and talk to the president of the Speedway on a Wednesday afternoon is amazing. But I got to take my hat off to the job you've done, the people you've talked to and affected. I think to me, you're the perfect guy for this facility and for this job.
Well, thanks, Don. I appreciate it. You know, the Speedway and the Indy 500 in particular is sort of our Super Bowl. But I tell people all the time, the Indy 500 doesn't exist without the NTT IndyCar Series. And Jay and the team over there do a tremendous job of giving us a product that not only is good the whole year, but is fantastic for the Indy 500. So we're pleased to be sister brother organizations, if you will, and we wish them the same amount of success. And being an oval guy, I'm hoping too that they'll continue to add ovals. And that's something that I know Roger wants to do, and Jay wants to do, and Mark and Michael Montry, who helps pull all those things together with the promoters. I think you'll see that in the future. The Iowa race should be an awful lot of fun this year. Gateway's going to be fun, and then certainly the Indy 500 will be
this place will probably hold its own without any question. I think, you know, the series is heading in the right direction. Jay mentioned a couple of weeks ago in an article that he anticipates about 28 cars per race, and maybe some with 1 or 2 more. It's now created a problem. The pit spaces aren't big enough. Now they're going to have to try and figure out how to get 28 or 29 cars in a place that was designed for 25. But that's a good thing to have. You'll figure it out some way. It'll work.
I'd rather have that problem, I think, than the other way around. And it's been, like I said, when you asked about are we in a better place at the Speedway, than we were 10 years ago, I think for sure, and a lot of that's because IndyCar is in a much better place than it was 10 years ago, and that's just from consistent leadership, amazing communication with the teams from the IndyCar side so that the teams feel like they're part of it. Roger, I think, sharing so much information with the teams, helping the teams navigate through a difficult 2020, I think has put us all, where oftentimes you have these arguments between teams and drivers and promoters and series. I think we all pretty much are pulling in the same direction, and as far as my time around here, I can't think of a better time than right now in terms of making the IndyCar Series and the Indianapolis 500 special.
Well, one thing that's always impressed me is Jay came from another series where I don't think anybody in the office ever listened. He, on the other hand, will listen. If a team has a suggestion or a question, he will talk to them. He gets people together, team owners and so forth, and say, here's what we have in mind, what do you think? So that everybody's on the same page, and I think that's made a huge difference to the series.
Well, and I think that's Jay's MO. I mean, Jay really wants to get things done. He wants to make a difference. He wants to be able to act quickly, but he also acts in a responsible way that he's well informed. And even if he makes a decision that the teams aren't going to agree with, he's sure to communicate with them on the front end so they understand why he's going that way. And I think that communication is really respected by the teams, and it's part of the reason that the culture feels so good in the entire IndyCar ecosystem right now.
And I can't wrap this up without saying how safe the cars are. The drivers I've talked to have said we feel safe in the car. The other good thing they like is when they have a problem, they know the people that are looking in the car to help them, because all the same ones go to all the events, which is a huge advantage, because most other series say we don't know who's there, and somebody sticks their head, I don't have a clue. But IndyCar, they know who they are, and the cars are safe, the drivers feel safe. A lot of people squawked about the halo and so forth. They're finding out that isn't that bad.
No, I think that's a great point. I do think the drivers don't worry about if something happens. They know they have the best care that there is, and that's something that we're all really focused on, making sure that the doctors and the rescue crews are all there. And the series is an unbelievably safe series for what it is. It is racing, and I always want to caution people that it doesn't mean something can't go wrong. But we are every day, and especially on the IndyCar side, every day thinking about how can they make sure that those cars and the rescue crews and all those elements related to safety are as safe as they can be, given the times we're in.
Well, the next thing I want to hear down the road is ticket sales are booming. And of course, you may not hear from me, but the people that do will handle that. So I appreciate you taking the time. I know you got a lot of other things on your plate, but I appreciate your time for coming. And I want to thank you for the job you're doing for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, this town and state of Indiana, and the series in general. You're everywhere all the time and always approachable. Thanks for your time.
Well, thanks for having me, and I'm glad you could come to our neighborhood, and it's kind of nice to get you out from behind the Zoom that we've had to do the last year and a half, but certainly out of the bar scene and hang out in front of Gate 1. So thanks for being here.
If you have never been here, this is where you see when you come into the place. The most spectacular racetrack in the world. We have some more guests upcoming, so until the next time, this is Don Kay saying thanks for watching, thanks for being here. Until the next time, we'll see you then. Today's program is being sponsored by and brought to you by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, SVRA and the resurging Trans Am Series, VP Insurance, which is only a couple of blocks west of the Speedway on 16th Street, Dr. Jack Miller and his dental practice, the Indy Dental Group, phenomenal practice,